artists are grounded. They're grounded not only physically but spiritually at the moment. We're in a place where we have an enormous amount of time on our hands, and we do great. We've always really wanted this much time to do what we do best, but the emotional pressure and the financial pressure and just the pressure to create is really stalled everybody. Everybody turned to online platforms straight away. It was the obvious solution, except creating music and art together is that we have other people to do it with. The online platforms just don't allow for people to collaborate together in the same space, whether it's dance, music, whatever, is with other people. I mean, how many artists do we know that are completely solo? It's very unusual. It's one thing to create art, it's another thing to communicate that art. The artists can, I suppose, when they can, keep working themselves and creating the art, but nobody's going to see or hear the art without the arts workers, the roadies, stage managers, publicists, producers, production crew, lighting designers, the sound engineers. Without the arts workers, there is no art. So We Will Rise is an album we've put together, a collection of Topology originals that we have curated together to really specifically for this time that we're in. A particular track on the collection for me is Rush. It's symbolic and quite significant because it's all of the Topology members on the piano at the same time, so 10 hands on the one instrument. As hard as it is at the moment for artists and arts workers, reach out to other artists and arts workers and stay connected. I think that's the most important thing.
It's obviously a real concern for me personally, but I don't just feel it for myself, I feel it for everyone in the arts community. Especially in the midst of a crisis, we need to have hope that we'll be able to get through this and we'll be able to overcome all the difficulties and obstacles, and the arts and music have the power to express incredibly transcendent and important, powerful things, and they do, just by their very nature, give people hope. It's a positive thing and a hopeful thing that people are realising more and more how much we do need each other and how connections are important. Hopefully post-pandemic, post-crisis, we'll be able to appreciate them more and perhaps put more time into nurturing that, sustaining that. The new album, A Will Rise, is especially curated as a vehicle for expressing what we might want to express now in this time of crisis. One of the tracks that I wrote is called One Day Gavin Stomach, etc, etc, etc. I took the bass line from MC Hammer's song You Can't Touch This, which goes da 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 da. It's a very relentless piece, driving, energetic and driving, and it's an optimistic piece. Different people in the group at the same time are playing in different meters simultaneously. And so it sounds very crazy and chaotic on the surface, but underneath it all, it's actually very integrated. The idea that all of us are separately and individually going through our own experience of the crisis, but at some of the level we experience the unity and of being together and working through things together. Hopefully this album will be a tiny little piece of the recipe of people's lives to help them feel more hopeful.
The travelling I do to regional Queensland, I do find that the views between the city and the country, people still have the same issues. They want their job security, they care about their kids, the environment, etc, etc. But the priorities of the different regions is very different. With the bigger city areas, the concerns are all about the COVID-19, the drought that is still ongoing, the concerns of those people are, okay, I've got to go and pick up my next supply of water, or I get to order my water truck to come in. So I think everyone has to be sympathetic with each other's views and what sustains their life. The album We Will Rise is a compilation of Topology's original music, I think spanning from about 1999 through to the present day. There's a real variation of all the tracks on there which reflect positivity, chaos, negativity, all the things that people are thinking of today. The track Millennium Bug, I did write the piece in 1999 when there was this worldwide worry about computers crashing, bank systems dying, and the way I wrote it, glitchiness in computers and things. It sounds like it's sort of wrong, but it's right. It all fits together and all ends up fine at the end.
Without doubt, for me, the biggest fear on my mind is climate change, and it's something that I think about many times a day. There are so many issues interwoven into climate change. If we don't have a stable Earth to live on, then we really don't obviously have anything at all. But of course, having a small person, and when you hear the projections, by the time you get to 2100, of course, we won't be here to witness the changes, but our children will, and their children will. We have seen that the whole world can make huge changes when we need to. You told any of us 6 months ago that we'd be in this situation, we wouldn't have believed it. But we've all suffered various degrees of discomfort because we know that it is helping others and it is saving lives. And I certainly don't want to discount people who've had enormous, physical and emotional and financial hardship. I'm not talking about that. But we've had a common purpose, and I think as a whole, we really have come together as a global community to do our best to address this. The arts has had a pretty severe beating in the last few months, and it'll be a while also before we can open up our concert halls again. So if you think, what people have been doing in this lockdown period, we have spent our entire lockdown consuming art. I mean, we are not in the arts for money. No one chooses this career because there's a big salary attached. So we will find a way to keep creating. I was really moved recently to see the first installment of Drought Stories. And I think this is where the arts is really powerful in telling stories and in the emotional resonance that those stories impart to our audience.
When the lockdown started, I was very anxious, have been a little bit withdrawn and insular as my way of coping, and I think people all cope in very different ways. It had a big impact on my creative ability to be able to even engage with music at all. What helped me was actually to reconnect with some music that I really liked as a teenager, and also some of my older music that I'd written and turned them into some solo piano pieces. I think there's something about trying something new, but also giving yourself permission to not have to achieve or be productive has been really helpful for me. It's okay if you're just getting through, that's all you need to do, and enjoying music. There's a lot of confused thinking, I think, which is something which worries me, that perhaps with all the fear and upheaval, there's a tendency for a lot of us to rush into rather uncritical thinking, and it doesn't help us to make good decisions or to find a good way out of things. But I think that we have that ability, and when we embrace working together and listening to each other and empathy, then that's a really good way through that. We Will Rise is a collection of some of our favourite music, including some pieces which are based on inspirational, important historical speeches. There's a bit of a theme of challenging times, working through a challenging time, and hope. We Will Rise comes from a speech by Prime Minister Scullin during the Depression, so that gives a flavour of going through a difficult time and coming through with some hope. And he said, we want you to have confidence in government, have confidence in your nation, and have confidence in yourselves that we will rise through these difficulties in our depression. I think music's very helpful at empathising with people's different emotions, and that's actually why I wrote about that music about Scullin. I want to empathise with what he was going through by listening in a musical way to his melody and his speech. So 19th of June is when We Will Rise is coming out on all digital platforms. Please get out there and listen to it and buy it and download it. We think you're going to love it. And we're so grateful for your support over the years. So to have the connection with you through listening to our music is fantastic.
Rise out of our difficulties and our depression. And we will rise out of our difficulties and our depression.